I debated Cambridge University students. Oh, he's doing like one of these forum things. How was this? Jesus Christ.
Hi, chat. I'm a little nervous.
Oh, I thought he did like I don't. What's the format of the college things I would do? There's like a name for the. They might just be called forum debate or whatever. I thought it was one of these, but it sounds like he does like basically an hour interview and then he just takes some questions. He gets smoked by a ginger person. Let's give me a timestamp real quick. The organizer hates you. Based. Did I do anything at Cambridge or? I don't remember which schools I've been to. Oh, Yale and Cornell, and there were two others, but I don't remember before I was recording them in here. Video of it. Uh-oh. Hasan debates Ron Weasley.
All right, let's do it.
Sorry for questioning you, but I'm sure
What? No, I'm used to it.
I guess the thing I was talking a little bit about was, I know you're not a fan of, I'm not a fan of him either, but, Richie Torres sent the letter. But,
oh, God.
But in particular, there were some comments in there about sort of dismissing, a lot of people did feel very upset at the time, I remember seeing it, about dismissing Wham! October 7th as rape fantasies, rape hallucinations. I mean, UN has gone, checked.
Yeah, no, you know what's ironic? You want to know what's ironic about that? So that was a 17-second clip that Richie Torres got from a group of people that are like, trying to...
Oh! So you're just going to ask him? Hasan's doing the thing where it was out of context. It was out of context. Okay, so you just ask him, oh, so then do you believe there was systematic or mass rapes that happened on October 7th? Just ask him then if it was out of context. Please, just ask him.
Present this narrative that I am a vicious anti-Semite that is a
it was
rape
just that you denied, yes,
denialist.
you denied the systemic...
And what's really interesting about that clip is that I went back because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And I went back and I looked at the 17-second clip that he put in that. And it was actually from a broader conversation where I was arguing against someone who was denying rapes. And I was like, no, I think that there is a very high likelihood that sexual assaults occurred. And I even brought up the UN report that you're suggesting that that there was at least one documented instance of first-hand account testimony from one of the hostages that sexual assault had happened. And that there is no reason to disparage or to claim that it did not happen when there is at least evidence that it did.
That's not what anybody's talking about.
And that it had not changed the dynamic of genocide for me even a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that the way in which you said that to a lot of people sounded very, very dismissive. Especially to people who, had relatives who were perhaps murdered or taken away. People felt that, the loss of life on that day.
So let me ask you this question.
Traumatic for the Jewish
Let me ask you this question. How do you feel about the fact that every day 20 million Palestinians die compared to only one Jew?
Let me ask you this question. Now that you know the broader context, do you feel as though, do you feel like you were maybe
duped, misled by destiny and the DGGers?
Duped. I don't want to say duped, but that you saw this that was very clearly out of context.
Just ask him if he believes if systematic rapes or mass rapes or rape as a weapon of war was used on October 7th. That's what it was about. Or if he just thinks that one happened, only one happened. Just ask him, did only one happen? Just ask him that. It's such a clear, easy, straightforward question.
Does that change your opinion a little bit? Or do you feel like I'm running defense?
I'm very much on the sort of, I've always been on the pro-Palestine side as a left-leaning person. So I never looked at what I saw and said, this is justification for blockade, genocide, anything like that. But I did see, I'm also a humanitarian, and I think that it's important when you're trying to solve a conflict, or when you're trying to stop violence, that you honestly say what happened. And what happened was, murderous militants went in to a music festival and murdered hundreds of teenagers in cold blood, and often massacred and mutilated them in ways that we have on camera. And that is deeply traumatic to me.
Why is he looking like he doesn't agree with that? Like, what does he not agree with? Oh, just ask him. God, he's such a fucking pussy. Dude. Oh my God, he won't own anything. Look at him. He's like, watch. He's like,
say what happened.
Watch.
And what happened was,
I agree.
murderous militants went in to a music festival and murdered hundreds of teenagers in cold blood, and often massacred and mutilated them in ways that we have on camera. And that is deeply traumatic to me. And I guess this was linking to a broader point that, yes, I understand this whole thing, but there is context to this, and you can't just sort of suggest any violent action is justifiable against someone if they don't hold views you like. But this is in depth.
I don't. Do you think I maintain that position?
It doesn't.
No. But do you think I maintain that position? Do you think that I think that it was wholeheartedly justifiable?
I think certainly you haven't been very clear in your comments.
Wholeheartedly justifiable? Like that's what do you mean by wait? So was it partially justifiable? What was that? What an odd combination of words.
I don't. Do you think I maintain that position?
It doesn't.
No. But do you think I maintain that position? Do you think that I think that it was wholeheartedly justifiable?
I think certainly you haven't been very clear in your condemnations at times. And I've watched what you said.
He used the secret trigger phrase, condemnation. Oh, you want me to condemn Hamas? Fine. Will you condemn the IDF?
Okay. It doesn't seem, for example, in
I
the course of your talk, you didn't mention what happened on October 7th once.
Yeah.
You mentioned it as the start of the conflict. You didn't mention...
I don't even think it's the start of the conflict. I actually, if you recall...
Actually, the conflict starts in... are we going to say 67 or 48 or 47? 48 or 47. Maybe earlier. My guess is going to be 48, 47.
Started the conversation,
Or maybe 1917.
even before the inception of the state of Israel. There's a deliberate reason for why I did that, because I think it's important to understand the historical context in which violent resistance.
There's no context for murdering hundreds of teenagers, is there?
I think that
context
I think
Really?
there's always
Is that something
context.
that
Just like
can
there's context.
contextually justify?
I don't think it's a contextual justification. I think it's offering background and analysis. Analysis is not justification. I mean, this is a deliberative body, right? We're in a space for free speech and debate, and I think that. This is actually, ironically, one of the things that I don't like about debate is that there is a woeful misinterpretation that exists in this space, and that, especially when we talk about certain things, like certain subjects that are very difficult to broach in an open and honest manner, I think a lot gets lost in the nuance. And I think you understand where I'm coming from when I talk about this, like that October 7 is, I've never said that October 7 is like the inception or the first stage in what has unfolded. I think that it's important to understand the context in which violent resistance has evolved, whether it be Hamas or whether it be any militancy against like overarching oppressive colonial actions.
But I suppose what I'm saying to you is there's time for nuance, and there's also time to say something is unequivocally evil, and something is unequivocally unjustifiable.
Oh, this is, what a cringe. This kid sounds just as cringe on the other end.
I think
I'm wondering why you can say that correctly about the wealth of Israeli atrocities. But to actually fix this conflict and gain trust with people, you need to say that unequivocally about the murder of hundreds of teenagers at the Supernova Music Festival, their mutilation and often their rape. And I don't know why you can't say that.
I don't. First of all, in terms of using the language of mutilation and rape, and also consistently saying that there is a contextual justification for it, I think the violence that states engage in, specifically an apartheid state, which you agree is Israel's an apartheid state. Okay, so the violence that an apartheid state engages in is oftentimes considered to be invisible. There is a tremendous
Oh my God. Rape is the language of the resistance.
number of documented
Rapes in prisons.
There's a tremendous number of
Rapes in prisons.
speakers and media representatives that have actively communicated all of the violence that has unfolded on October 7. I myself have also maintained the position that any kind of violence against civilians is completely unjustifiable. But I think it's more productive to at least be a resilient voice that, especially in the West, that tries to explain that these aren't barbaric monsters, that these are horrifying atrocities that they did, right? But that it is not coming out of a place of this antiquated anti-Semitic tendencies, or that they wanted to go out and like do mass rapes, or any number of different ways in which people have, I think, in a very unhelpful way, tried to claim that there is no emancipatory ambition here, and that there is no valid.
God, where does he learn these cringe emancipatory ambition? Yes, we are freeing the Gaza Strip with the murder rapes at the festival. Like if we just kill one more partier, seize the LSD, my friends. We're so close to freeing Gaza, bro.
Interest in wanting to be rid of Israeli sovereignty.
Do you think that by invading the Gaza Strip, that they were not motivated by anti-Semitism, given the fact that they were murdering civilians indiscriminately?
Invading the Gaza Strip?
By invading from the Gaza Strip into Israel.
Yeah.
Do you think that they were not motivated by anti-Semitism, given that they were murdering citizens? No. That is remarkable.
No,
the entire logic of Hamas.
Yeah, no, I
built
don't.
on anti-Semitism.
Oh, so they were trying to free the country, one party goer at a time.
Don't recognise that, then you're never going to build any trust with the Jewish community. If you have people who are
He
out
doesn't care. He doesn't. What the fuck? How many Jews are in the world? Like 10, 12 million? How many Jews are there in the world? How many Jews in the world? 15 million? Okay, 15.7. Fuck them. Who cares? Who cares?
and suggesting that your people don't have a right to exist. The slogan of the Houthis who so far is death to the Jews.
I know, and I've been very
They can exist. They just need to go exist in Europe or in Brooklyn.
critical of that as well.
Well,
I don't know if
critical
that
enough not to platform somebody and call them a sexy pirate.
that person wasn't I don't know if you're.
Whoa. The person that I brought on, just because he was famously known as being an attractive Houthi, who on his Instagram and his Twitter has multiple times said he's a Houthi, that guy wasn't even a Houthi, bro.
Aware of this or not, but that was a 19-year-old Yemeni teenager that was actually not associated with the Ansar Allah movement at all.
There is enormous debate about that, and it is highly unlikely he'd be fighting with them if he had no connections to them. And you were not
He was
mentioning
not.
that in
He
the
was.
context
He was
of
actually. He was not fighting with them.
Then why'd you bring him on? If he was just a random Yemeni kid, why bring him on?
There's a lot that gets lost in the translation, and certainly I think a lot of commentary has existed in the space of a conversation that I had 10 months ago, or at this 11 months ago, before the Ansar Allah administration was even designated as an official state-sponsored terrorist organization. Joe Biden had actually taken them out of that classification that Donald Trump had put them in because of the fact that they were moving on, that the Saudi-Iranian normalization had taken place. And that person, the 19-year-old Yemeni teenager, I originally thought was a Houthi, and I'm very open about that.
And you
Wait, then why would you? Wait, then why are you saying that he's not a? If you brought him on because you thought that he was, then why the fuck are you? What?
perfectly happy to give him a hang.
Oh, absolutely. I think that there is. It would have been a very different conversation. But having said that, if you think that I would have, like, there were points in that conversation where I asked them directly, "What do you?"
Wait, I confronted him.
think about Jewish people? What would you say if I were to tell you that there are a lot of Jewish people who are leading anti-Zionist protests in America? And his answer was very clear. And this is a person that has...
Yes, he does indeed think it's cool when there are Jews in the U.S. that shit on Israel. Okay, and there are Arabs. There are famous Arabs that also shit on Arab. What do you think about well, fuck. I was gonna say apostate prophet, but I shouldn't say that's an Arab shitting on Arabs. That was a guy who's left the religion of Islam. But if I would point to a guy like him, Hasan probably hates that guy. That'd be my guess. Without even knowing anything about it, my guess is if Hasan has ever said anything about the apostate prophet guy, he says he hates this dude. He fucking hates him, right? I'm sure you can find these people that are like this. What does that matter?
And they said, "Oh, I don't hate Palestinians." You would critically engage and examine that, but you do not critically engage and examine with this individual. And instead, you
because an IDF soldier in many circumstances is living in similar conditions to someone like myself. So I treat.
I don't know how many more of these psychic attacks I can handle. Oh. An IDF soldier is in many instances living in the exact same conditions as I myself, as a $4 million home. Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
Palestinians. You would critically engage and examine that, but you do not critically engage and examine with this individual. And instead, you
because an IDF soldier in many circumstances is living in similar conditions to someone like myself. So I treat someone in the Western world with Nazi ambitions very differently.
I think this is interesting because it suggests that you don't have a moral universalism. What I've heard from you is this very eloquent, and I agree with it, moral condemnation of the atrocities. But when we talk about the murder of gay people en masse in Yemen, when we talk about, for example, Tibet's oppression under China, or when we talk about what Hamas has done to gay people within that, or to what they do to Jewish hostages, you enter this contextual blather. And it strikes me that these...
Because you want to know why?
You want to know why, bro? It's because if we weren't bombing them, they would be gayer than us, okay? They would be way more gay than us.
You want to know why? Because Israel has killed significantly larger numbers of gay Palestinians than Hamas has.
What is the source on that? How could you even... Holy shit. What the fuck? What the fuck? I feel like every time Hasan opens his mouth, it's just a new fucking meme, dude. Jesus.
And that is precisely why I think it's a universally unproductive conversation. Hamas
what Hamas has done to gay people within that, or to what they do to Jewish hostages, you enter this contextual blather. And it strikes me that these...
Because you want to know why? You want to know why? Because Israel has killed significantly larger numbers of gay Palestinians than Hamas has. And that is precisely why I think it's a universally unproductive conversation to...
How can you just so confidently say just the most bizarro things? I don't even know.
Consistently talk about the many different moral failings, especially when I look at this with my own personal background, with the understanding that reactionary movements grow when there are outside forces that are invading a country. This is something that I actually talked about with respect to Ukraine as well, that while there were many movements within Ukraine that were constantly fighting against paramilitary groups that had started off as offshoots of football hooligans, the Azov Brigade being one of them, that...
Did he just try to characterize the war in the Donbass as the paramilitary neo-Nazi Azov battalion fighting against offshoots of football hooligan groups? Or did I misunderstand what he said there?
When there are outside forces that are invading a country. This is something that I actually talked about with respect to Ukraine as well, that while there were many movements within Ukraine that were constantly fighting against paramilitary groups that had started off as offshoots of football hooligans, the Azov Brigade being one of them.
Okay, no, he's saying there are other groups fighting against... The Azov battalion is an offshoot of a football. Okay, I don't even know what level of propaganda we're even working on here. Okay.
Once Ukraine was invaded by Russia, that the inevitable violence was going to make all of the most right-wing reactionary forces, the emancipatory forces that were going to dominate the country in perpetuity. We saw this with Iran, the destabilization of Iran back.
Isn't that kind of the opposite though? In 2022, was it in 2022 or 2014? Wasn't Azov formally rolled into the actual military proper, rather than them just being kind of a weird paramilitary offshoot? Is this considered code switching? Yeah, well, I wouldn't consider it code switching. I would consider it mask on. Hasan is very much like the Nazis who would do like the wearing a suit showing up. He's basically like, he's the Richard Spencer, or what Richard Spencer used to be or whatever now, of like the commies and tankies or whatever. He'll show up like very mask on to these events and kind of present himself as like, oh, I'm like your uncle's liberal, you know? I just want healthcare and justice, bro. When in reality, he's like an authoritarian, you know, fasci adjacent fucking cringe lord.
Backed by the CIA, caused the Ayatollah tree in perpetuity. We saw this with Iran. The destabilization of Iran, backed by the CIA, caused the Ayatollah to overtake the country. Because in most circumstances, when Western forces or an outside force is coming into your country, you don't care about who is actually fighting back. You just want the pain to stop. You want the violence to end. And I examine this across the board in the exact same vein. When a larger, more powerful country meddles in the affairs of a smaller country.
I like how he's saying, like, I did a cross-historical analysis. I analyzed this across multiple countries. What, little bro, you mean you read 4 tweets doing this? What are you talking about? Dude, I get cringe. I think like 99% of the time, even I'll say like, oh, I think I read a paper. And by paper, I mean like, I'm pretty sure I read the abstract of a thing. I don't know if it was actually a published paper, it was an MBE or a working paper. And like, but Hasan out here would be like, so I did a cross-sectional analysis through all of history. Really? Where? You stream like 280 hours a month. When did you do this? At what free time did you engage in this analysis?
I examine this across the board in the exact same vein. When a larger, more powerful country meddles in the affairs of a smaller country, no matter how big or small, yeah, Iran, exactly. Iran is a perfect example of this. I think that the Iranian destabilization and the implementation of the Shah regime is quite literally the reason why the Ayatollahs were able to gain momentum.
Intervention of Iran in the other panels, but in terms of the broader problem with that.
But do you understand where I'm coming from? Because there is universality there. And I think the universality is hard to grasp, especially if you've grown up in the United Kingdom or if you've grown up in America. It's very difficult for people in the Western world to shed themselves of Western chauvinist frameworks and engage in, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but engage in what I have seen as pinkwashing by consistently talking about the internal dynamics of any kind of resistance group when, in fact, we do not make those considerations for many of our allies, and it's not even something that is remotely brought up in this conversation as far as like universality goes. I've never heard anybody go, we got to stop giving Saudi Arabia weapons because of the horrifying treatment of gay people.
You've never heard people criticize within the United States because of their treatment of women or gay? Wait, what? What country do you live in? How could you just say that? Wait, what?
Frameworks and engage in, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but engage in what I have seen as pinkwashing by consistently talking about the internal dynamics of any kind of resistance group when, in fact, we do not make those considerations for many of our allies, and it's not even something that is remotely brought up in this conversation as far as like universality goes. I've never heard anybody go, we got to stop giving Saudi Arabia weapons because of the horrifying treatment of gay people. I still think it's unjustifiable, just like it's unjustifiable in Yemen. But ultimately, the way I look at it, if there's a much larger, much more powerful country that is getting unlimited weapons from the most powerful country on the planet, and they are engaging in wholesale slaughter, I think analyzing or interpreting the dynamic of like Hamas and gay people in that regard is ultimately not only unproductive, but also it's not something that is within our realm of power even. I think that these countries, my country, Turkey, for example, will inevitably, once they have breathing room, have the time and opportunity to be able to advocate for their own civil liberties. Because
and he's doing the thing. The only reason why they hate the gays is because they're getting bombed so much.
Countries, my country, Turkey, for example, will inevitably, once they have breathing room.
Where are all of these Middle Eastern countries that are chill with gay people that have had relative like periods of stability then? Like, what are all the major wars that Egypt or I guess like Jordan has fought since 73? Like, are they like
have the time and opportunity to be able to advocate for their own civil liberties? Because at the end of the day, the gay people that Hamas could potentially harm are still gay Palestinians. Does that make sense? And we come will inevitably, once they have breathing room, have the time and opportunity to be able to advocate for their own civil liberties. Because at the end of the day, the gay people that Hamas could potentially harm are still gay Palestinians. Does that make sense? And we have the benefit of living in the UK or in the United States of America, where we have undergone this process of civil liberties and advocacy for civil liberties and be able to overcome these issues like the structural hurdles of systematic discrimination that gay people face. Like, I mean, think about Alan Turing.
I think there are 2 issues. Sorry if I just respond quickly.
If I might just say,
Why was that the go-to example? I'm so confused.
for a very long time, by all means.
Sorry, I don't mean to-
No, it's fine.
I would love to sort of offer some of Cambridge Union's sort of fantastic hospitality, maybe British culture. Maybe.
Sorry, yeah, you're right.
Sure. Can we film it? Can we still stream it?
We can film. We'll go to a pub, have a pint. You know, we've been debating for a very long time. I love debating as well.
I hate debating.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah,
I am not. A lot of people think I'm
fair enough to debate about things which you like fundamentally disagree with. Or, like, you know, we don't get anywhere in society without doing that.
Sure, but there's a line of people too. So
The
maybe
language Hasan uses matches almost 100% of my experience in my childhood years taught in school in communist Cuba. Oh, I'm sorry, in communist China. Maybe he does the left leaning. He's like the king fucking mask on Marxist dude. Like he uses all the Soviet propaganda talking points when he's talking about the Western world. Like he's like, this is like an enemy of the state. Like unironically, like he has all of and he does it while being like a hyper consumerist, hyper capitalist. Holy shit!
Yeah, I will get back.
Fuck me, dude. All right, I love you guys. Be careful. I'll be back tomorrow. River and channel option. Don't die.